Okay, multiple people in chat are saying that it's very common for cooks to get tipped out in Canada. So maybe in Canada that is a thing more.
And AOC speech aren't leftist enough. I mean, they're not wrong. They're not wrong. They're right. They are correct. They're not wrong.
Wait, what?
And AOC speech aren't leftist enough. I mean, they're not wrong.
Bernie and AOC speeches aren't leftist enough.
And AOC speech aren't leftist enough. I mean, they're not wrong. They're not wrong. They're right. They are correct. They're not wrong. Like Bernie being like, Israel has a right to defend itself. It's ridiculous. Okay, what do you mean Israel has a right to defend itself?
Okay.
Big Dog has been 18 months. Like 18 months. Okay, the people that are upset with that are perfectly valid and perfectly reasonable. But you have to also understand that there's dual use here. Okay.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
Like, go to the rallies and recruit instead of just like sitting around and being like, well, I would do it differently. You know what I mean? I understand feeling discouraged when you see someone who you have looked up to, admired, saying ridiculous things, you know?
Oh, I wonder if, because he didn't get to do any more interviews when he was at that rally or whatever, I wonder if he got a chance to talk with some people in their campaigns, and they said that they probably weren't going to go ahead with any more Hassan interviews with AOC or Bernie. And now he's like, well, this bridge is burned, so now I'm just going to shut him for my audience credit or whatever. I wonder if they aren't working with him anymore. Otherwise, I don't know why he would go so negative on him now.
You know what I mean? And AOC speech aren't leftist enough.
Destiny has often found himself in the middle of political disputes that pit ideological purity against pragmatic reality. One of the clearest examples of this dynamic came when he addressed Hassan Piker's outrage at Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders for not taking strong enough pro-Palestinian stances. Hassan expressed visible anger at their speeches, framing them as watered down, establishment-friendly, and ultimately betraying the progressive cause. Destiny, however, chose to put forward an alternative explanation, one that does not dismiss the frustration of those demanding stronger words, but that instead questions the assumptions underlying the criticism. For Destiny, the issue isn't simply about whether AOC or Bernie are personally supportive of Palestinian liberation. It's about how political messaging works in practice, and why figures like them must navigate a far more complicated terrain than their audiences often recognize. He made the case that while outrage toward politicians who fall short of maximalist positions is understandable, it's also worth considering the strategic realities these politicians face and the broader consequences that come from alienating certain bases of support. The first point Destiny raised centers on the political ecosystem itself. Figures like AOC and Bernie don't exist in a vacuum where their words are heard only by progressive audiences who share their worldview. Instead, every statement they make is filtered through mainstream media, conservative critics, and political opponents who will weaponize those words. A politician explicitly aligning with a hardline position on an issue as volatile as the Israel-Palestine conflict risks not just alienating moderate voters, but also jeopardizing their ability to work within Congress at all. Destiny argued that the public often underestimates the degree to which messaging is constrained by these structural pressures. It isn't necessarily about cowardice or betrayal. It can be about preserving the political capital necessary to stay in the fight. Secondly, Destiny suggested that Hassan's sudden escalation in attacking AOC and Bernie might be rooted in more than just policy disagreements. He speculated about whether Hassan's relationship with these figures has changed behind the scenes. If campaigns stopped granting him access or interviews, it would create an incentive for him to shift into harsher criticism, if only to maintain credibility with his audience. While Destiny didn't outright accuse Hassan of this, he entertained the idea that personal factors could be shaping the tone of his attacks. From Destiny's perspective, this is worth considering because outrage rarely exists in a pure vacuum. It often carries an undercurrent of interpersonal or professional dynamics. Beyond this, Destiny also pointed out that there are more productive avenues for political engagement than simply expressing anger on stream. For people who feel betrayed by AOC or Bernie statements, the rational next step would be grassroots organizing, coalition building, and recruiting at rallies. The act of dismissing politicians outright for not being left enough may feel satisfying, but risks sidelining movements into echo chambers where no practical gains are made. Destiny stressed that real-world politics is often about compromise, persuasion, and gradualism, messy processes that do not lend themselves well to the kind of purity tests common in online spaces. The Israel-Palestine conflict itself adds another layer of complexity. For American politicians, this issue is uniquely fraught, carrying decades of bipartisan consensus in favor of Israel, immense lobbying pressure from well-funded groups, and a voter base where support for Israel remains strong in certain demographics. AOC and Bernie taking softer stances may not represent betrayal so much as political survival in an environment where stepping too far outside the Overton window could destroy their ability to serve at all. Destiny underscored that these realities don't excuse their statements outright, but they do contextualize them in a way that makes their actions more intelligible. The backlash from figures like Hassan reveals a recurring tension within progressive politics, the conflict between activists who demand uncompromising moral clarity and politicians who operate within institutions designed to dilute such clarity. Destiny sided with the view that while disappointment is understandable, outright rage risks undermining the very movement it claims to serve. By turning figures like AOC and Bernie into villains, progressives may inadvertently fracture their own coalition, handing more power to the very forces they oppose. This analysis speaks to a broader societal issue, the way political discourse online often strips away nuance in favor of emotional performance. Outrage drives clicks, builds audiences, and strengthens parasocial relationships with viewers, but it does little to advance meaningful change. Destiny's defense of AOC and Bernie is less about absolving them of criticism and more about reminding people that politics isn't a fantasy where the boldest rhetoric automatically translates into progress. It is instead a constant negotiation between ideals and reality. By positioning himself against Hassan's framing, Destiny reinforced a theme that runs through much of his commentary: the importance of separating emotional satisfaction from practical outcomes. People want to hear their leaders speak in ways that affirm their values, but leaders who step too far out of line with the constraints of the system risk losing all ability to make change. Destiny acknowledged that this creates a frustrating paradox for progressives, but one that must be navigated rather than ignored. Ultimately, Destiny's point was not that AOC or Bernie were perfect, or that their speeches deserve praise. His point was that dismissing them as traitors ignores the realities of power, messaging, and political survival. For him, the more useful question is not whether they lived up to standard of ideological purity, but whether their positioning keeps them viable enough to continue pushing the needle within a hostile system. Hassan's anger reflects one kind of truth, that progressive figures often compromise more than their base wants, but Destiny's argument reflects another, that compromise is the unavoidable price of holding political office in America. This tension reveals why movements often fracture under the weight of their own expectations. Some want total alignment between moral clarity and political action, while others see compromise as the only path forward. By weighing in, Destiny highlighted just how difficult it is to balance these competing instincts and why outrage at AOC and Bernie, while emotionally satisfying, may not tell the full story of why they act as they do.